Vomitoreum is a surreal FPS Metroidvania, taking heavy inspiration from titles like Metroid Prime and Dark Souls. It was built in the hottest retro engine out there, GZDoom, and developed by Scumhead, who is responsible for other GZDoom efforts like Shrine and Lycanthorn. A good number of my wonderful viewers have recommended this title to me, and as soon as I got my eyes on its eccentric graphics and learned of its artistic influences, it was hard not to be intrigued. So today I'll be lending my thoughts on this curious indie, and whether or not this surreal shooter is worth your time. And so with that, let's begin and get a little weird. The first thing to know about Vomitoreum is that it's a post-apocalyptic tale. The intro tells of an alien being coming down to Earth known as Vomitoreum, who spreads an infection throughout mankind, transforming the populace into horrific monsters. Led by a great warrior, the survivors waged war against Vomitoreum and eventually drove the monster away. However, its infection would persist, driving the surviving factions into isolation as the world continued to rot. In a last-ditch effort, the Masons, a group of mutated humans, created the Nephilim, a monster designed to destroy Vomitoreum once and for all. You play as this Nephilim, and the game begins with his birth and first steps into this bizarre and dangerous husk of a world. Vomitoreum's narrative is dark and nihilistic, a depressing argument that the greatest evil of all is human nature. This is a game that's not going to leave you with warm fuzzies. Quite the opposite. But its disturbing themes and imagery, and world building that draws from mythology, make it a thought-provoking experience that left me pondering just how destructive cruelty and pain can be. There's not much more I really want to say on the story because honestly, I don't want to ruin it. But if you like your narratives to leave you with positive feelings, then this isn't going to do much for you. But if you're someone who isn't put off by bizarre and explicit themes, then there's a lot to chew on here. For its visuals, Vomitoreum takes heavy inspiration from Polish surrealist artist, whose name I'm sure to butcher, Zdzisław Beksiński, whose work is astoundingly wicked, depicting visions of nightmarish dystopian worlds. His elegant style and grotesque imagery has had much influence on games in the last few years, as seen in titles like The Medium, Scorn, and Doom Eternal. Obviously, the capabilities of GZDoom can't match Beksiński's brushstrokes, but it's easy to see how Vomitoreum's imagery takes from the artist. There are many references to his work, along with a similar use of color, with warmer tones contrasting with cooler ones, giving everything an unnerving alien feel. Unnerving is a good word to use here. Vomitoreum is always trying to trip out the player and put them into a nervous, unsettled mood, putting focus on small, simple, but effective set pieces and effects, like a hallway of arms stretching out from the walls, a long, thin corridor of darkness broken up by red lights, and something as simple as a slow fade to white as you go up a long elevator. It's like walking through a surrealist funhouse, and I was in awe of how the developer used GZDoom to create such a melancholy atmosphere. Adding to the atmosphere is the excellent sound design. The game's world is defined by a dissonant, unsettling soundscape that helps paint a picture of a sick and dying world. But it's the enemy sound effects that will really get under your skin. The screeches of deformed monsters, the screams of nightmarish entities, and the childlike whimpers of dying soldiers. They sound as though you're killing innocents, a great example of how this game puts you into uneasy moods. But sounds are also implemented in a way that is practical to gameplay, like the hum of fluorescent lights in the save rooms, something that can be heard from a distance, always tipping off a player to their whereabouts. It has its rough aspects. While the designs for characters and monsters are highly creative, the artwork for the individual assets is somewhat inelegant. Some of the line work is awkward looking and coloring is a little too simplistic for my taste, especially in NPC dialogue screens and cutscenes. However, sprites for weapons and enemies, along with their animations, are well done and environments each have their own distinct character with lots of imagery that begs to be looked at. Although at the same time, larger areas are underwhelming in terms of detail, with lots of repeated texture patterns which never look great. I would argue this is a sum of its parts sort of presentation. These assets individually are nothing to write home about, but taken all together they do create an immersive atmosphere that is both mystifying and dreadful. At the end of the day, whatever the developer wanted me to feel, I felt, and that's what matters. As a game, Vomitoreum is most comparable to Metroid Prime and follows its playbook closely. Typical of Metroidvanias, the world is a navigational puzzle box where you must find items or abilities to overcome obstacles and access new areas. The Bunker Gauntlets, one of the first items you receive, lets you uncover passageways by smashing blue blocks. Dash boots allow you to clear gaps regular jumping cannot, and the Fetal Soul allows you to shrink down and enter small spaces, essentially Samus's Morph Ball from Metroid. Your weapons in the game, the pistol and the trench gun, both can be upgraded to provide new traversal abilities, which is good because you'll need them to find the many secrets in this game. Map design is solid as well. Areas are large and allow a lot of freedom in movement, lending themselves to satisfying exploration. And all major areas are linked together by numerous shortcuts, making backtracking a breeze. I also want to shout out the distinct environmental colors that are reflected on the world map too, making it easy for players to intuitively navigate this world. Admittedly, there were a few times I found myself lost and frustrated, having to scour the map to find my next destination. And there were some out-of-bounds areas where it looked like I could explore, but ultimately hit an invisible wall and was teleported back. A little irksome. Although these annoyances were minor and hardly tarnished the experience. Vomitoreum scratched my Metroidvania itch, but it didn't scratch it long enough. This game can be beaten in around 3 to 4 hours, which was a shame as the Metroidvania aspects truly left me wanting more. Unfortunately, in terms of being a shooter, Vomitoreum is fairly average. Mechanically, it all feels good, but there's not much to the enemies past their designs. Most of them saunter around slowly and typically come at you with slow projectile attacks. They're not terribly exciting or challenging, except for when you're trapped in smaller rooms jam-packed with the tougher enemies. But the problem with these encounters is that they just end up feeling frustrating and cheap. Enemies also don't respawn, so each combat encounter is one and done, making future backtracking a lonely experience. Boss encounters are more interesting in terms of design and challenge. Here you will see a lot of the Dark Souls influence, perhaps a bit too much of it with some of these fights. While I enjoyed these battles far more than the regular moment-to-moment encounters, they still didn't do much for me. All of them are overly long due to bloated health bars and get real repetitive real fast. Combat is just not a strength here, which is a shame, but not the end of the world. The Metroidvania gameplay and atmosphere do enough to make up for it. But if you're here purely for an intense, satisfying shooter experience, Vomitoreum will disappoint you. Vomitoreum is not for everybody, but who it is for will find a lot to like here. Metroidvania fans will enjoy a brief but beautiful example of the genre. Those obsessed with GZDoom and the artistry being done in it these days will find it hard to pass up, and despite being rough around the edges, the surreal visuals and the atmosphere they create is artistically captivating. However, those looking solely for a satisfying FPS experience, or would rather their games not feature themes that will bum them out, should probably steer clear of this one. For me, I'm excited for what the developer will do next. It's clear they have a solid grasp on the Metroidvania genre, and while their artistic style borrows heavily from others, if you peek their previous games, which many are available on Steam, it's clear they are developing a style which has only gotten better and more unique. If you ask me, I think Vomitoreum is a stepping stone to something more special. I'm eager to see if I'm right. But that's it for me today. What are your thoughts on Vomitoreum? Let me know down in the comments. If you dug the video, please be sure to subscribe, like, share, and smack that bell. If you want to come say hi, my Discord is linked below, along with my affiliate links. I'm Kirk, and thank you for watching this video. Stay safe out there.